Welcome to the fourth episode of the 2084 Talent Setter podcast, where we have been speaking to industry leaders in fintech and crypto. Today, I'm very excited to be talking with Natasha Powell, Chief Compliance Officer at BCB Group. BCB Group is Europe's leading crypto business banking partner and provider of payments and trading services for the digital asset economy. Welcome, Natasha. Absolutely thrilled to have you on the podcast today.
Happy to be here, Quentin. Excited to do the podcast.
Brilliant. Well, I guess first of all, just for our listeners, if they don't know BCB Group and what you're doing there, if you could tell us a little bit about the company and your role, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. BCB Group is essentially aimed at being a one-stop shop for the crypto industry. We provide payment rails for those in the crypto sector to execute payment transactions. We facilitate FX trading and we facilitate a crypto trading out of our Swiss BCB entity.
Fantastic. And you're the Chief Compliance Officer there, is that right?
That's right. So I joined the firm back in May as their Chief Compliance Officer. It is recognition by the firm that for us to deliver the expansion that we are on track to bring to fruition in 2023, we needed to have a more holistic approach to our compliance arrangements and the way we organize ourselves. So I was introduced to the firm by some mutual contacts who'd previously been advising BCB, and they said, we've got someone who might be interesting to you. And it was really a meeting of minds. It was wonderful. I spent time with Oliver Tonkin and Oliver von Landsberg-Sadi, who are the two CEOs, or the CEO and the GC. And it really just went from there. To work at BCB, you have to be flexible, you have to be agile, you have to be willing to embrace challenges and move quickly. And it became really obvious to me in my early conversations with the two Olivers that this was a space that I could work in, and that they were the sorts of people that I would like to work for. Brilliant.
Well, it's been an interesting journey for you, I think. So as far as I know, you started at the FCA, or maybe it was the FSA then, perhaps?
It was the FSA back in those days, yeah.
Yes. And then you've been in the big banks as in senior compliance roles, compliance director roles, and now you've moved across into the digital assets market. What would you say, what have you learned from the big banks, I guess, and the regulator that you're bringing to your current role?
It has been a really interesting journey, and one that I would recommend very keenly to those starting out in the industry. When you start off at the regulator, what you learn quite quickly is how the formulaic process works. The step that the regulator has to go through, they don't change quickly. So the things and the concepts that I was embracing back in, 2005 are still very much present there today. The hierarchy that exists within that regulator, the protocols that they have to go through have not evolved dramatically. And when I'm talking to our supervisors now or engaging with the regulator, it's just bearing in mind the pressures and the tensions they have on their side, and knowing that you can't fast track certain things in certain ways, you can't skip certain details, you have to be very, very transparent with them at all times. And also realizing that they're humans too. And if you're trying to work it out, they're probably trying to work it out. So not being too aggressive or even condescending to them. It's like, take them step by step through the business model, take them step by step through the specific ask, explain to them why a certain piece of regulation or protocol works for you or doesn't work for you. And if you go in with that sort of attitude, I think they're really, really appreciative and receptive. When it came to working at the bank, the main learning curve for me at that time was this is how you work incredibly hard. So I worked in Barclays Capital and then in RBS throughout the late noughties and then into the post-collapse era, when everyone, it felt, routinely would be working 15, 16, 17-hour days, and the pressure to deliver and continually deliver at an exacting standard, because that's what was required to be put in front of the senior stakeholders in the bank, was levied upon you from a really, really early stage. So I joined Barclays Capital in 2007, and I think it was within a year I was leading a global team in a way that I just hadn't done before. And so it was a very fast learning curve of, okay, get yourself on a plane, get out to Tokyo, get yourself on the plane, spend time with the team in the States, spend time with your team here, and work out how you are going to motivate these people to drive forward the results we need with the scrutiny and the precision that we need. And those lessons stay with you. I tried to shake it off. I tried to shake off big bank culture, and hopefully I've shaken off the worst excesses of it. But certainly that work ethic and the desire to cross every T and dot every I have stayed with me. I then did some time away from banking and finance. I retrained as a pastry chef, which was total career change and, phenomenal. And as much as I love my job now, probably the happiest I've ever been in the workplace. It ultimately wasn't going to pay the bills. So I went back into finance, and I went back to Schroders, where I did some asset management. Again, a very different vibe. And then I stopped and had some children and took a couple of years out, did some consultancy, set up my own consultancy business, worked with hedge funds, asset managers, prime brokerage businesses, and then lastly back into corporate finance and through there to BCB. So I feel like over the course of the last 20 years, I've touched almost all elements of financial services. I haven't done insurance, but other than that, I feel like I've touched almost all areas of financial services, and have weathered quite a few storms along the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's really impressive experience. And I'm definitely in the camp where I think, to reach the level of chief compliance officer or a C-suite role, it's good to have broad experience across different industries and different types of roles. So I'm sure that must stand you in good stead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the key tenets of a chief compliance officer and chief compliance officer role is, firstly, not panicking when something doesn't land right or go your way, or when the regulator comes and asks you difficult questions. Remembering that if you've got a solid framework and you're pointing north, you're probably going to be okay. No one wants to see you fail. Being patient when explaining regulatory concepts to your C-suite colleagues, and not expecting to deliver change overnight, but having to gently and slowly turn people to the direction you want them facing. Having a sense of humor, because most people on my C-suite now still you want to make jokes when compliance starts talking, and I know they don't mean it. It's just that traditional banking way of saying, "Oh, here we go, compliance again." Where I know that it's fundamental to our business, and they all support me in that way. And being very ready and willing to stand your ground when something doesn't feel right. If it doesn't, the old adage, if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right, is basically what's taken me to this point in my career, and saying, okay, I'm gonna draw the line at that deal. I'm gonna draw the line at that transaction. I'm gonna make sure that we stay safely within our defined risk appetite.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Funnily enough, that's literally the question I was going to ask you. What makes a good CCO? So, I think keeping a level head, staying within the framework, building really strong relationships. That sound like the right way to go. With regard to, I mean, I guess there's a lot of talk now of commercial compliance officers, and you mentioned. I guess sometimes there's a bit of humour when the compliance officer's speaking, so to speak. How do you think? How do you think for those people that are listening that are in senior compliance roles at the moment? How do they make their role more commercial?
The way I go about the commerciality and the difficult decisions we have to make is, my starting point is I can support, as long as it's legal, I can support any activity my business would like to deliver. I just need to be able to put an appropriate control framework around that. So if you want to take on a certain business line, if you want to take on a certain customer, if you want to move into a certain jurisdiction, no problem, happy to help. It's going to cost you this. And if I can be really, really clear about the cost of compliance and how what is needed to support safe business development, then that makes it a really easy commercial decision, because you say the revenue that we will generate from this decision is X, cost of compliance is Y. Does it make sense? Yes or no? And we're done. I would rarely come to the table and say, no, that's a no-go. I will always couch it with, we can do it, but these are the considerations that you're going to have to factor into the equation when we hit the go button.
Okay, yeah, that's really useful advice. And regulatory changes, Tash. So I guess there's a lot of regulatory change happening at the moment, and in the digital assets and crypto space. I guess it's regulation is at its infancy, I suppose. What would your advice be, and how do you deal with regulatory change? Well, I guess first of all, how do you keep on top of it, and how do you deal with the unknown and uncertainty?
Yeah, so I think there's a few interesting points there. That the first is, how do we keep on top of it? Just by being really active participants in the market. So building up your connections, your interactions in industry groups, with the regulators themselves, with law firms, with compliance teams in other businesses, be engaged with service providers, and just regularly reading, ingesting, studying, and working out where the different stakeholders around the world are with their evolution of crypto and digital asset regulation. For me, the challenge is a very exciting one, because whilst at the moment we're headquartered in the UK, our global expansion plans will take us into mainland Europe, will take us into Switzerland, hopefully in the future will take us into the States. So keeping our eyes on multiple regulators in multiple jurisdictions. We've been working closely with industry groups in the UK to be part of the conversation with the FCA, with lawmakers and the FCA, in terms of what happens next in the UK. I think the FCA has a massive opportunity to shore up the competitive advantage of London in the crypto market, but it's got to make the right decisions with the regulation that it brings to the table, and it's got to do it relatively quickly, because other regulators are picking up space. We're seeing MiCA about to land in Europe, which has some advantages to it. It means that we have homogenized state of affairs across mainland Europe, which is awesome. It's conservative, and it's going to make the cost of compliance for us and for many of our customers exacerbated. But with regulation comes opportunity. And then the US is an interesting one to keep our eye on. They are similarly moving at pace. And ultimately, where they land will drive and shape where the whole crypto economy lands.
Mhm.
So lots of different fires going on. Keeping on top of it is an endless task. We're building out a function within our team at the moment to help us do that. And I think that those people interested in careers in reg affairs, horizon scanning, reg development, there's loads of opportunities in this space. And certainly I hope to be able to build out more of that in my team in 2023.
Interesting. And you mentioned there that there's, I guess, it's a reasonably competitive environment for regulators to attract companies into those jurisdictions. So where do you think the FCA sits in that competitive environment in comparison to, say, Europe or the US, based on the last few years? And what do you think?
They're playing their cards really close to their chest. I suspect actually what we will see is definitive fast movement from them when they are good and ready.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting the right noises now from government and the regulator. They are very much promoting the fact that they are crypto friendly, and they see it as an important space, which is a definite turn, because really up until sort of 18 months ago, the tone from the top was, we are hesitant, we are reluctant, we are scared. But we're seeing that change, which is great news.
Yeah, really positive. And I think from government as well, there has been talk of making the UK a crypto hub, which is really good. So I guess from a recruitment, you mentioned some potential. I guess a big topic at the moment on compliance officers' minds and MLROs' minds is, and also a big risk currently as well. As far as I can tell from the conversations that I've been having, is hiring and retaining talent. I guess if we talk about retaining talent first, I mean, what would be your? I guess what are your methods to retain talent in your team?
Well, I think retaining talent is a really interesting conversation in compliance, and a particularly interesting conversation in crypto compliance. So the general view within BCB is that we have to make this, our proposition as an employer, we have to make it exciting, we have to make it fun, have to make it something that will stand our employees in good stead as they move up that career ladder. And whilst 20 years ago when I first started, the approach was, do your time, learn your trade, and then after a couple of years you can come and talk to me about career development. Here, if we're not moving people onwards and upwards in a 12-month window, then we are failing our employees, because they can leave, go to another crypto firm and be advanced and given those opportunities at that type of accelerated rate. So my challenge within my team is, one, empowering my people and making them feel like they are supported to deliver initiatives, that they don't need to have their hand held, that they're viewed as adults, that what they do is considered valuable. And then two, giving them enough exposure to different elements within the compliance arena that I can build and enhance their skill sets and leverage that so that they can move on to the next role in their career. So for example, within our financial crime team, which is where the majority of our compliance teams sit, it's making sure that if I'm using someone in KYC on customer onboarding, that I could also use them in transaction monitoring, that I could also use them in fraud investigation, and keeping the reporting lines, which are notoriously flat in this type of environment, agile enough that people feel they can make meaningful progress. So often our experience has been in BCB, it's not just about the salary, it's not the bottom line, it's giving people the opportunity to make a difference. And fortunately, we are so busy within the firm, and the compliance function is so central to our efforts, that my team is always flat out, is always chomping at the bit for the next thing, and getting the opportunity to step into spaces that they haven't before.
Great, that's really good to hear. Really cool. Particularly in this market. I mean, it's been a pretty crazy year for regulatory roles this year.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of demand. And I think retaining, I've not seen a market like it before. I mean, there's been a real push on companies to retain talent. We've seen a lot of quite hefty counter offers for candidates. So I think it sounds like you're doing the right things there, and it sounds like a fun place to work, an exciting place to work.
Yeah, we haven't struggled. We haven't struggled with attrition. We haven't lost people, but I am acutely aware that I am developing a team of market experts who will be in hot demand. And so how the retention piece and how I do that is my daily, 5 minutes in the morning. Am I making this a worthwhile experience for my guys? How can I buy in their loyalty more?
Yeah. I guess the good thing with BCB as well is you are on a growth trajectory. Yeah. So people can really be part of that journey too. And they can grow as the business grows, which is great.
Absolutely, and we are that agile employer. So if we have opportunities for you to, as I said, move within the function, move across the functions, move across our international teams, then we'll support you to do that. Really, right. It's a really exceptional environment to work in, and where it most stands out for me from sort of the TradFi experience is exactly that the door is never closed. The door is always open for opportunity, advancement, development, to see things differently, to ask questions in a different way, to volunteer different answers. So unlike traditional finance compliance where it's a path well tread, this is new. This is for people who want to start thinking outside of the box and viewing traditional compliance frameworks and traditional compliance framework problems in a different, more agile lens.
Great, cool. And your role covers both regulatory compliance oversight and financial crime.
Awful, it's terrible. Yeah. It's too much.
Sorry, anti-financial crime. Just a bit of an open question here, Tash. How do we win the fight against financial crime?
I think it's really important that we recognise that yes, financial crime is prevalent across all aspects of financial services. Where there is money, there is opportunity to abuse the system, steal the money, channel the money in ways that that lawmakers don't support. Now, for us in crypto, part of the battle is educating regulators, educating the marketplace, educating investors, and educating consumers that we are no more, our sector is no more dangerous or predatory than any other aspect of financial services. Yes, there are bad apples, there are bad players in this market, but if you apply a rigorous risk-based approach, you can very much protect your firm, protect the market, protect your customers from those excesses. If you follow strong KYC, if you follow strong transaction monitoring, if you follow strong ongoing monitoring and quality controlling your customers' arrangements, then we should be able to drive a status in the market that is as stable as anyone else in financial services. And for us at BCB, we see ourselves very much in that role of, as a regulated firm, we have obligations to our regulator that we have to fulfill. Not all of our customers are regulated, but we want to create an ecosystem that's safe for everyone. And so whether you're regulated or not regulated, if you want to work with BCB, then you have to be able to demonstrate core control standards that enable us to channel your business safely. And so one of the roles that we take up with enthusiasm is helping develop a safe ecosystem. We'll do it, we'll help you do it, we will inform you when things aren't working, we'll suggest to you how you could make them better. And it's through that community of effort that fight against financial crime becomes more manageable.
Okay, and how does technology help you do that? I mean, what would you say is your teams must have compliance or AML tools or technology to help them do the job? What's a kind of a must-have in your opinion?
You can't do it without it. So unless you've got a really decent screening tool to screen against PEP sanctions and adverse media, it's a no-go. Unless you've got a really decent transaction monitoring tool to be able to identify unusual suspicious patterns of activity, it's a no-go. Otherwise, how will you ever be able to verify who you're doing business with and the nature of the business that they're doing? So really, it amazes me that you look back 20 years again, and these tools were developed in-house. Now there's just no need. It's so inefficient to develop them in-house. There are such good reg tech solutions in the market. And I've worked with countless now different monitoring systems, and some have been very, very successful, some have not been so. But without it, I think it's very, very hard to demonstrate any type of reg compliance.
So do you think technology, do you think it will impact the skill sets of compliance officers in the future?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm the ancient age of 42, and I am constantly having to pause, stop, refresh, and try and work out how I can upskill myself in terms of reg tech. Because when I see some of the younger guys in my team navigate through the different systems architecture that we have in place, the speed with which they can do it, the speed with which they can do tasks that historically would have taken us 4 or 5 hours to do, they can now come up with the same solution in 10 minutes. I'm like, that's where I need to be. So I think the challenge is for all traditional compliance officers to say, okay, yes, we did things on a manual basis previously, but now we all have to upskill and go down a technology route, because you can't do anything at any size or pace unless you can navigate those systems.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's impacting all manners of life, really. So
the other thing is making sure that our regulators understand that as well. And if we can have a common understanding of what good reg tech looks like, if we can have providers that have the buy-in of our regulators as well as industry, then that's a really helpful guide for people coming to the market.
Absolutely, yeah. I guess a good thing with reg tech is it's not really a case of one size fits all, though, is it? I suppose you have to make sure that you tweak it.
Yeah, what's right for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right for you.
Great. So what would you say are the biggest challenges you'll be facing over the next few months in your role, Tash?
For us, it's going to be the expansion piece. So we are currently hoping to land an EMI license in France. We are in the process of finalizing the purchase of a bank in Germany. We are in the process of trying to land a fintech license in Switzerland. For each of those jurisdictions, the raft of regulation and requirements that the firm has to absorb doubles, triples, quadruples. And the volume of business that we'll be able to absorb doubles, triples, quadruples. And very, very quickly, we have to get ourselves into a safe place where we could absorb that volume and be able to still handle it in a safe way and in a way that our regulators understand, recognize, and support. So it's really, really firing on all cylinders on embedding new regulations, making sure that the operational controls are there to support them, rolling out new processes, rolling out compliance solutions that put our customers first. So it doesn't matter where you get onboarded or which entity you're dealing with, you have a homogeneous, positive experience throughout your life cycle as a customer. And much of that will be how does compliance interact with the activity that you are doing, and how does compliance support that activity? As compliance officers within BCB, we are constantly challenging ourselves as to how to make our customer journey smoother and easier and more light touch, whilst at the same time getting to the same results. So with the expansion into the jurisdictions, that problem manifests itself more because the volume is more. So it's making sure that we can keep pace with the change that's coming at us.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. And I'm sure there'll be quite a few people listening to this that are starting out their careers in compliance or AML. And I guess you're now at the board, a board level role. What sort of tips would you have for them if they want to do well in their careers?
I think foremost is hold on to that level of integrity. So one of the things that makes a good compliance officer stand out is almost their bravery in saying, this doesn't feel right, and I'm willing to voice that, and I'm willing to demonstrate to you why that's going to be an uncomfortable decision for the firm. I think at the point that compliance officers get bullied or that have their voice taken away from them by the business is where people lose sight of why they're in compliance or what it is they're doing. So not being afraid to speak up, not being afraid to fight your corner and fight your battles is really, really important. I would also say to anyone entering into compliance now, just keep your eye on that forward view, because every single time I have made a job move, it's to move forward into a new or developing space, because reg change is happening, and where reg change happens, there's opportunity. So really keeping your eyes not just on the day job, but also what's that next step for me? As you said, the compliance market is hot right now. And actually, fortunately, I don't think that's going to change. So people aren't suddenly going to say, no, we don't need a compliance team, or we don't need compliance resource. What they want is strong, smart, better, more forward-thinking compliance people. And if you can ride that wave, then actually your career is pretty secure and mapped out for you in a way that other areas in financial services really isn't. So be strong, have integrity, keep an eye on the future pathway, be resilient, because the number of times in my day where I'm told that's not right, you've got that wrong, change your opinion, do something differently. No, I'm resilient to that, and I know how to take the body blows and keep going. And try and enjoy it. Yeah. I went to a compliance roundtable not so long ago, where a group of what we called ourselves sort of grumpy old compliance officers sat round, and we laughed and we bonded over sort of the absurd and wonderful situations that we'd found ourselves in across our careers. And I think if you can try and find the fun and the enjoyment out of what we do and the human nature of what we're doing, then what could otherwise be seen as quite a dry area suddenly comes to life. Because you know what, we're all trying to get through this together, and everyone, I strongly believe that most people in financial services are trying to do the right thing, and therefore having a supportive compliance officer makes that journey easier.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I guess if you're going to do well in something, you've got to enjoy it. It's critical. You've got to buy into it, enjoy it, and I guess that involves having fun with other people. And I suppose the only one thing I would add to your points there is build a good network.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly right. And on your point about enjoying what you do, I've had jobs over the course of my career where I haven't enjoyed the people that I've worked with, and I've felt like my voice isn't heard, and I've had to make brave decisions to say, this place isn't for me. And I've relied on the fact that I've kept my CV up to date, I've kept my skills up to date, I've kept my network up to date, and that finding that next step is never as hard or as difficult or as painful as you think it's going to be. If a job doesn't work for you, don't bang your head against a brick wall and make yourself miserable doing it. Go and have a chat to Quentin, go and have a chat to recruiters and see what else is out there, because there is always another opportunity for you.
Definitely. And talking about enjoying things and relaxing, what do you do when you're not working? How do you relax? How do you have fun?
I literally never don't work. I think one of the curses of a CCO is that it is almost a 24/7 job. There is always something burning somewhere that needs urgent attention. So if I'm not trying to solve a problem, then I'm juggling my 4 children, my dogs, and a sort of very hectic life out in Kent, which gives me, as I regularly complain to anyone who listens, almost no time for myself.
Yeah,
I find myself in that
sounds familiar.
I find myself in that horrible hurt locker of a situation where I have a successful career and a busy young family, and juggling those is an endless battle and an endless requirement to multitask. What I am really, really grateful for is that BCB is an environment where that's okay. Everyone around our top table has family. Everyone understands the pressures that brings. We have hybrid working, we have flexible working. And to the extent that people need leeway or freedom to be able to see to the things that are actually important in life, which is their family, then the 2 Ollies at the top are true gentlemen in letting us do that and deliver against that. So for women working in financial services, finding a fit where that is enabled is, for me, absolutely essential.
Great. Well, I mean, it sounds like you need to carve out a little bit of time to relax.
There is no time.
Absolutely. You mentioned, you thoroughly enjoyed being a pastry chef many years ago. But, how did that come about, and why did you enjoy it so much? And do you still make pastries at home?
I do.
And what's your favourite?
I still do. So actually, I took a sabbatical when I was at Barcap. I'd done 3 years sort of pretty much hand-to-hand combat every day in the office. And then I said, I need some time out, guys. And so I did some traveling, and then I retrained at Cordon Bleu, which was a phenomenal experience every day. And I double-hatted for a while because I was consulting at Schroders and doing my training at Cordon Bleu. So I would wake up at 7 o'clock, go to the kitchens in Marylebone, that they were at the time, put on my little chef hat and cover myself literally from head to toe in chocolate. And then I would go get changed, put on my high heels and my little skirt and go off to Schroders and do the thing that I was doing there. It was just so different from compliance and office life, and the people I met were so wonderful. The chefs at Cordon Bleu were amazing. I've still got friends who work in the industry, and actually looking at their lives now, I think, oh, did I get this wrong? Should I have gone into chef life? But they are working, honestly, harder than I do in kitchens, sort of 70, 80 hours a week. So maybe there's no clear path on that one, but I certainly still do cooking. It was my son's 5th birthday this weekend, and I made him a gigantic Sonic the Hedgehog cake.
Wow.
Which is, exactly what I trained to do. Pastry school all those years ago. But so if there is one thing, I guess, that I do when I'm trying to chill out, it's some cooking and things like that.
Definitely. Well, like you said, I'm sure being a pastry chef is pretty high pressured as well.
Do you know what? I wasn't very good at it. I'm not going to lie. I really enjoyed it. But I am impatient. And so just learning to sit back and watch the dough rise, etc. I was always trying to prod it or make it go. I'm not sure I was ever destined to be a successful pastry chef, though I would really like, if I could stop and do something different, I'd really like to have a cheese shop or a deli or a little patisserie or a chocolate shop. It would just be amazing. That would be such a lovely, joyful life.
Yes, that sounds lovely. Yeah, absolutely. I'll come and visit for sure. Well, that's all. It's been an absolute pleasure, Tash. Thoroughly enjoyed that. And for anyone that's listening, if they want to get in touch with you, if they want to get in touch with BCB, how can they do that?
Absolutely, please do. Either look us up on LinkedIn at BCB Group, or drop me a line directly at tash@bcbgroup.io. It would be great to hear from people. If anyone's interested in going into compliance right now, or crypto compliance specifically, I'm really happy to share my experiences. We will be recruiting in 2023, so I'm really keen to hear from people who've got an appetite for this work.
Brilliant. Well, absolute pleasure, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Cheers, Tash.